Welcome to episode 22 of Anchored in Education. I'm E. Scott England, and Anchored in Education is the podcast dedicated to all things education. Educators across the world routinely engage in conversations surrounding fundamentals, concepts, and new ideas that improve this great profession. Sometimes we agree, other times we disagree. But at the end of the day, we are all anchored in education. After Jennifer and I got engaged, we scheduled an appointment with our preacher. It was at his request, not ours. Now, I'm not sure what Jennifer was thinking, but I had assumed it was to begin talks of how we would like the wedding to proceed and other details such as that. So, you can imagine my surprise when he opened the meeting with, quote, "Is there anything I can do or say to talk you out of getting married?" Now, my first thought was, man, what kind of question is this? Well, actually, hold on. Jennifer listens to these podcasts, so let me retract that. My first thought was an emphatic, heck no. My second was, what kind of question is this? After we both assured him that there was nothing he could do, our meeting proceeded with never another mention of the wedding not happening. I guess we had convinced him. Over 15 years later, I'm still convinced too. But I thought back to that question the other day. No, I'm not thinking about changing my answer. Instead, I'm thinking about how smart of a question that was and how it can apply to other scenarios. You see, his reasoning for asking was that if there was hesitation or lack of eye contact or just general unsureness, then he would know that the wedding should probably be delayed, not necessarily canceled, more of just postponed. And while many may disagree with that right now, I appreciate that someone was looking out for me because that was my biggest commitment I've ever made. So I was thinking one night, how can the principle of this question possibly benefit educators? Simple. At some point during the teacher preparation, someone should ask the potential teacher if there is anything they could do to talk them out of becoming a teacher. Maybe tell them that there will be long days where you are unsure of your ability to educate children. The soon-to-be hours late at night lesson planning, making sure that everything will be taught and the students will learn. That's the hope, because you never know when an administrator might stop by. The nights you're about to spend awake worrying about children that aren't even biologically yours, and parents that simply don't like you because they choose not to. And you'll have parents say things about your ability or lack thereof, and it's going to sting, and it too will probably keep you up at night. Another wonderful sleep lost again to you questioning your ability. Becoming so engrossed with teaching the ultimate lesson or reaching the most difficult student that you spend hours off in your own world, ignoring those around you at home. There is a possibility of a micromanaging building leader who doesn't give you the autonomy that you need to be the most effective. There could be that burnout educator who makes your life miserable because you try new things. And even if they do talk to you, it'll be full of negativity. They'll say things like, get out while you're still young, and they'll complain about any and every change being made. And you'll hear more than once, that's just not the way we've done things around here. There will be students who'll be disrespectful, maybe even belligerent in your class. Never mind the fact they are just craving your attention and the desire to be understood. Of course, all you'll have to do is get them to understand that you are here for them. And to get to that point where you have that kind of rapport, you will have to spend days upon days, maybe even an entire year or more, working on that relationship. You may have to teach lessons and units that go against your beliefs or philosophies. You will be told that it isn't about the high-stakes test, and everyone knows it is only one poor measure of a student's achievement. Yet, when the scores come out and your school is compared to the neighboring district, you had better hope for high marks. Otherwise, you will feel the wrath of someone. I guess I should have asked, you aren't going into art, music, the trades, or maybe even physical education, are you? I hope not, because those are still undervalued in education after all these years. Yes, I know research has proved how valuable all of these are. You don't have to convince me. You have to convince those making the decisions. But you'll find a large percent of politicians don't have a clue how education works. They don't get what students truly need, and they sure don't understand what an educator goes through. They'll just pass bills and laws that affect an entire state just to appease one person or one group, or maybe just themselves. And don't blame one party over the other because we're at a point where both sides are doing more harm than good when it comes to education. Now, have I mentioned anything about finances? I guess I should before you decide to become an educator. Many states have taken proactive measures in increasing starting salaries. That's great news. But you are about to spend hundreds, maybe even thousands of dollars out of your own pocket. And you won't make as much as your friends who have just graduated and entered private industry, but at least you'll have a secure retirement. Or will you? I guess that depends on where you live because an increasing majority of states have underfunded teacher pensions, with bleak forecasts on reversing this trend. Okay, there it is. You've heard my pitch. Now give me your answer. Do you still want to be an educator? If it's a no, then I've just saved you time and money. Go find what you really want to do. Even if you are hesitating, I think you should look elsewhere. Being an educator is probably not for you. Go find a job somewhere else in a different profession, and maybe at some point you'll realize that education is where you need to be and want to be. If you are unshakable right now, though, if none of this fazed you, then allow me to be the first to welcome you to education. And guess what? Even if everything I mentioned happened to you, you're going to be okay. You know why? Because you chose to be an educator for all the right reasons. Yes, there will be days when you are unsure of your ability, but you are more than capable, or you wouldn't even be where you are today. I more fear the people who never question themselves. And late night lesson planning will be fun for you because you will challenge yourself to plan a lesson that engages every student every time. And don't worry about that visiting administrator. In fact, you'll probably ask them to stop in frequently because awesome things will be happening at all times in your room and you want to share it with all who will watch. And no matter how wonderful you are, there will always be a parent that says mean things or doesn't like you. Guess what? Who cares? Don't lose precious sleep over it because I promise you this, they aren't losing sleep over you. You will spend hours of your own time outside of school planning, thinking, researching, and reflecting, and that's okay. But remember, the people at home love you. Make sure you spend time with them. Be present when you are with them. And if you are struggling, let those at home know. They are your foundation. Lean on them for the support needed to be a successful educator. If you have a micromanaging administrator, find a new job. You've selected a profession where the options of where you can practice is plentiful. Don't let someone make you miserable. Which brings me to the burnout educator. Yes, they exist. Yes, they are negative. It is quite possible they'll make snide remarks over your teaching. But again, who cares? Are you doing what is best for children? Are you engaging, inspiring, and molding? Sounds like you are right on track. Just know this, complaining, negative teachers are not the majority. Build a personal learning network that gives a positive vibe you need. Join Twitter. I guarantee you that the negative teacher isn't on there learning outside of their required time. And what about those disrespectful students? You're going to set your sights on them. You do not care how long it takes to reach them. You know that regardless of how stubborn they are, you are more stubborn, and you have more stamina to work at breaking down those barriers of the hard-to-reach students. You don't have to be told it's about relationships because you already know that. You knew that long before you took Education 101. And high-stakes testing won't be a worry to you because you spent the time building relationships and planning amazing lessons that students will want to work hard for you at testing time. Because they'll want to work hard for themselves, and that's what it's all about. And if you're headed into a special position such as art or music, let me be the first to thank you. Our students need these areas of studies just as much as what is referred to as the core subject areas. You may find it frustrating that you have to advocate more than others, but you'll do it anyway because you know what's best for kids. Of course, That education has even become as big of a political pawn is frustrating in itself, but stay informed and advocate for what is best for students. You can do this by advocating within your school or your district. And if you weren't fazed by everything before, then I'm guessing you aren't becoming a teacher for the riches. But there is good news. Several episodes ago, Dr. Zach Stanifer and I put together a couple episodes on teacher retirement. You don't have to stress about pensions if you take some proactive steps to secure an alternative retirement vehicle. The bonus is if everything is fine with pensions when you retire, you'll just be that much more ahead. I'm about done for today's episode, but give me just a couple more minutes to reflect on this exercise of asking soon to be teachers if they're sure they want to get into education. I am beyond serious that I believe this should be asked. Too many times we see educators enter the profession either not entirely committed or entirely informed of what to expect. If someone cannot look at everything they will potentially face and be 100% sure they will still want to do it, then I find that as good an indicator that they are not going to be best for students. We cannot mess around or be unsure when students are around. We need to be committed beyond doubt because their future depends on us. If you are in education and have felt the pressure or the stress, then you know where I'm coming from. You also know that everything I'm saying is true. When I mentioned the negative teacher, you actually pictured someone. It's okay, so did I. But if you're like me, you will find motivation in this to be an even better educator than you already are. And you'll probably go out of your way to connect with their students who are not in your class just so they know someone in the school cares for them. Yes, this profession is hard. It is trying. It is difficult and ever-changing. It is challenged, insulted, and manipulated. But you know there is work to be done. So let the naysayers and the pundits do what they do. We'll continue to do what we do, which is to make an impact, make a difference. Because at the end of the day, we are all anchored in education.